got to get into this next topic. Now, this one is going to probably, it's going to do two things. One, it's going to get Xbox players excited because something is happening and it's positive. And if they are PlayStation players, not regular gamers, but I'm talking about the POSs of the of social media that just make reading some of their tweets like nails on a chalkboard because they're so illiterate, it's embarrassing. Asus has made a pretty stout statement. I have a story here from VGCharts.com written by William DeAngelos, posted yesterday. And William goes on to say in this article, Asus or Asus, in its Q3 fiscal year call with investors, stated that the ROG Xbox Ally X is, quote, in high demand since it launched on October 16th. And more importantly, or not for anyone that doesn't have it, it's in short supply, and they are currently having difficult times meeting the demand of this handheld. Now, here's a couple of quotes from that meeting. It goes on to say, we believe that we have achieved our goals in terms of premium positioning and creating a new growth driver in the gaming segment, said Asus executive in earnings call via Seeking Alpha. And that's why we launched the third generation of the ROG Ally last month. It featured a deeper collaboration with Xbox. Chris Baum, let's get your thoughts on this because this is a really big deal. This is a $1,000 console in 2025 where we know spendable money is just not the same. I want to get your thoughts on this because, again, I saw some of the detractors of Xbox products saying that, oh, well, when you only make 2,000 of them, of course they're going to sell out. I just, again, when I read those kind of things, A, they get blocked, and B, I'm embarrassed for them as a human man because no one is going to make 2,000 of a unit when they want to sell millions of it. It's just preposterous. Let's get your thoughts on this, brother.
Yeah, everybody, it's not going to sell well. It's too expensive. I mean, the one thing I'll say is this is probably not good for the prices down the road. Clearly, they probably more than likely, figured 1 million units or something like that. I mean, that seems pretty conservative for at least a $1,000, handheld console / PC, whatever you want to call it at this point. People always saying, hey, this is not this or that. Clearly people want it. That's the point. And, if you look at their collaboration at this point, you wonder if even, Microsoft was not expecting this. That said, we see people still going after console sales. Well, the Series X and S are included, but not the ROG because, it's made by Asus, and I guess they are not going to even acknowledge it at this point, but I'm sure that Steam machine they will. So, looking at it from a high up situation, I say this is showing the proof of concept. This is going to allow them to say, okay, people are interested in the ability to do this. We must double down. We already have somebody coming out with a similar platform that we want to do. And I expect and believe, and obviously this is just my opinion, that a good time would be the Game Awards to announce the next console. And with the ROG Ally X being so sought after, it's going to be interesting to see what they reveal because the rumors are true. It's going to be another powerful machine that we could put under our TV. So I'm intrigued. And, obviously I'm the type of person you're going to spend that type of money. No offense to anybody that has it, but I'm going to let you guys work out the kinks. And when I'm ready, if I want it, I'm going to buy it. But that's really my opinion on it. And it's just good to see that, they came out with something new and it really has attracted, people to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to try this out. And I think, it's going to bode well for the future of gaming in general.
Well, you mentioned pricing. Look, these consoles, whether they be the handheld version or the next generation boxes, and I'm not, Nintendo, they're in their next generation, right? They're doing what they're doing, and it came in higher at a higher price than some people wanted, and it might actually still raise. Nintendo's already said that. But PlayStation 6, from what we understand, is years away. They are in the design phase, and we know, thanks to Lin Tao, who is the CFO of Sony Corp, he said that the PlayStation 5 is currently in the middle of their lifespan, which means they expect it to sell, or at least be selling the PlayStation 5 for 10 years. Is that possible? Sure. Now, I know there's been some pushback on my thoughts where they're saying, well, that doesn't mean they're not going to do a PlayStation 6. That's true. But a PlayStation 6 is not releasing next year, and it's not coming in 2027 because they just started with it. So the earliest I can see a PS6 actually happening is probably 28, which is what the original rumor was. Now, Sony has already said they're going to come in cheaper than their proposed, premium and curated device that Sarah Bond was talking about. So that we already have an idea that the Power Crown is not going to be on PlayStation, but that doesn't mean that the PS6 is going to be not capable. It's going to be a very powerful machine. There's just no doubt about it. The question is when. Well, looking at what's going on right now with the Xbox Ally X, it is selling out. And it's selling out because there is a high demand for this. And I think what it ultimately does, Silent Cypher, is really open the eyes or knock down the door, so to speak, for Xbox actually making their own in 27. Because remember, there was some stuff that they put that on pause, but I think the sales of this thing indicate that the console gamers, i.e. me and a lot of people in this chat, will spend the money, even if it is $1,000 for potentially an Xbox handheld. And folks, listen, no one, unless Microsoft comes out tomorrow and says we are doing a one box and that's it, type of SKU situation for next gen, am I going to believe it? I think there's going to be $1,000 console. It could be 8, it could be 9, it could be 1,000, whatever it's going to be. I'm getting it day one. But I do think there is going to be an entryway into next gen gaming that is going to give you all of the advantages that you're seeing right now with the ROG, allowing you to have all of these places like GOG and Epic Games and Steam to get other games outside of Xbox and still play your library, because we know that at one point, every game that you own is going to be playable on this thing. Let's get your thoughts on what you think is going to happen with the success, and do you believe it's actually selling out, Silent Cypher?
So, as you guys talked about, they've been very vague, obviously, at this point in time, but we haven't seen actual numbers at this time to extrapolate what we're looking at as an overall total for this. But it is funny because I've seen some of those people commenting the same thing. It's oh yeah, well, if you only make 2,000 units of this item, of course you're going to sell out. That's just how it works. Well, we know that in Spain, they had about 1,000 units that were sold during the launch week in Spain. And we know that this thing has released in 45 different countries. So right off the bat, I don't think they made 2,000. That's kind of a silly type of approach to it. Obviously, they have a lot of these things out in the market across the globe. What the numbers look like completely, who knows? But that being said, that was, and I think that was just for the Xbox ROG Ally X, was 1,000, right around 1,000 in Spain.
Yes.
So we have an idea that this thing is pretty widespread, and obviously it'll release to more markets and territories as it goes forward. That was just the initial launch back in October 16th. So we haven't seen a bunch of the details yet, but we can tell that they've obviously got a pretty good stock of these things that have actually gone out across the globe. I think from what we've seen so far and from the feedback that Microsoft has probably received from this so far, it's a really good first step in the direction towards their new hybrid console.
Yeah.
it's like, are there still things that need to be patched up and squared away? Yes. But in general, like when you turn that system on, it boots you right up into your Xbox UI wrapper. You choose what game you want to play, you play the game. It's pretty basic. I don't think I talked about it on here last because I think I had just gotten it, so I was just barely getting my hands on it. But with the Xbox Ally, now granted, like you could probably go as deep into the upgrading or updating and stuff as you want to, but for someone who just wanted to test it and see what would happen if I didn't bother doing some of the upgrades and stuff, um, I haven't been going in and doing like updates on Windows or some of the other stuff throughout the system. I just wanted to see how long it would work before it broke or before it told me like, hey, I can't play your games. I've updated here and there, like when the Xbox store said that it has an update on my ROG Ally. But past that, I haven't really done much outside of the UI wrapper just because I was curious how it would work. And if I would get to a point like on the previous ROG where like if I didn't have updates, it wouldn't let me play the game. Like at a certain point, it would be like, no, we can't load this because you haven't updated your system. I've not run into that. And I've not run into any negative effects on playing the games that I have on the system because of not upgrading it so far. So it seems like there's less urgency to some of that stuff than some people out there in the industry are making it sound like too. Because I know that was one of the biggest things that people came out with initially was like, oh, if you boot this thing up, you got to go download this, you got to download this, you got to get this update, you got to get this Windows update, blah blah blah. Like, yeah, you could get those things, but I'm telling you from someone who's updated like once, and that was I think the first couple days in.
Yeah.
I updated like once when it first came out. I've not updated since, and the system's working just fine.
Yep.
I've not seen any impact on my games because I didn't do the updates. It's very much what I was expecting it to be, which is like I power it up, I go to my library, I play the games. That's very much what it is. It's doing what I expected it to do. And from what we can tell, even just in like these little groups and the chat, like the podcast families that we see, like whenever I'm in like Dirt or Sean's show, or I'm in some of these other shows as well, or I'm in here, there's a lot of people that are jumping into chat. They're like, yeah, I got mine, I'm loving it, I'm playing it. Like there's a lot of people who've adopted this thing.
Yep.
And this is a good sign for them. I will agree with Crispy that the price, unfortunately, is kind of signaling towards what we're going to see in the future.
Yeah, I agree. He's right.
But that being said, we're also getting more capable hardware for that price. I think the thing is they're trying to get rid of those days where when these systems come out, they're immediately obsolete.
That's a great point.
That's how a lot of these things had been previously. Is like 360 was a good system, but as far as the actual hardware and like the specs, it was. I mean, you could already get stuff more powerful in the PC market right then. Whereas a lot of this stuff that they're bringing out now, because they're not trying to go for like the lowest possible cost on it, you can play these things because they do have higher specs. Like, yes, you're having to pay more, but you are getting more competent hardware. So it's an interesting market. It does make me nervous as to what kind of prices we're going to see on some of the new gen hardware. But it does get me kind of excited about the fact that we know that there are going to be partnered third-party ones as well. Possibly an Asus system, or systems from other people, because if we have multiple systems out there that are targeting certain performance levels or whatever for the system and what the specs can do, we're probably going to see competition on the pricing in market as well. So like if you have Asus and you have someone else that's got a system that are similar as far as the specs on the Xbox side of things, maybe you'll see them competing more on pricing. So maybe you'll see better deals occasionally. Could be a good thing. We'll see how that rolls out. We'll see if that's how that feels pretty optimistic. We'll see if that actually happens. But I think this is a good step in the right direction. I think this is a good first start into getting some sort of hybrid system. I don't know about you. I actually haven't docked my system yet at all. I've got the dock. I haven't docked it yet and tried it on TV, but everything else that I've done on it's been pretty good. I've enjoyed it. Everything I've thrown at it so far plays really well. Despite some of the silly pictures I saw online, Spider-Man plays great on it, and it plays at like pretty much all the settings at the highest. So you can play your Sony games on your Xbox. As much as it angers them, you can do it. So,
well, I see a future where that's going to happen more often than not. Again, that's a whole other conversation. King David and I had a great conversation about potentially the future for Sony, and their future for money purposes is no longer just doing console launches. And a perfect example of that is now Ghost of Yotai is a profitable game. We just learned that they sold 3.3 million copies, and that's phenomenal for the game. And I'm happy for Sucker Punch. I really am. That's a studio you want to see, continue and succeed. And again, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to wait for a sale during Black Friday. I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to pick up the deluxe edition, play through it, and enjoy it. But I think that Sony themselves would have much rather had 6.6 million copies sold. And they would have had that possibly if they launched on PC, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they did a day and date situation, this is something that would have made them more money. Because and a perfect example of how that worked in their favor is Helldivers 2, right? But with these new handhelds and the future Xbox consoles, I've said this before, and this is probably going to piss a lot of people off that are just non-Xbox players. I'm not buying a PlayStation 6 because I'm not going to have to. If they get to a day or they get to a time in their development cycle where PlayStation 5 games or PlayStation 6 games are launching on the console and on PC, as I expect them to do, then I'll just play on my Xbox and I'll buy their games from wherever. And I won't need a PlayStation 6.
Boom. How many PS5s did they announce that they've sold so far?
It was closer to like 84. Well, they used the word shipped, so I don't want to really get into the how many shipped versus. It's almost 84 million is what they've total. If they've moved in one way or another.
So let's say that they sold 80 million. Let's say they sold through 80 million of that. That still ends up only being like a 4% install base that purchased that game. Like 3.3, don't get me wrong, like it's not bad for a game. They did good. They had a good reasonable budget for this game, so they're already making money back. But I do kind of think it's funny that there are people out there parading how amazing this 3.3 is when you have like 80 million consoles out there. That should tell you something about what the install base is, and that should tell you what Microsoft has seen and what all these companies know right now is like the PlayStation ecosystem, the PlayStation diehards that are buying these games are about 4%. They're not enough, right? So like I'm sure they prefer the idea that they could have this game on PC, Xbox, etc. Why? Because corpos like money, right? Like, I don't think in any world Sony's like, yes, we sold 3.3 million on this system. That's the best thing in the world, blah, blah, blah. We could never do any better. I'm sure they're like, gee, but how much money are we leaving on the table because we're keeping it in a walled garden? And I think that's why we're going to continue to see as time goes on, they're going to release these things out to other ecosystems because like no way does Sony just want to scrape by or like make some profit on a game. They want to make all the profit, just like every company. Like Call of Duty, Microsoft doesn't want to make their budget back on Call of Duty. They want to make 10 times the budget back. So like I appreciate that it did 3.3, but at the same time, like they could have done better. And they should have done better considering how many systems are out there. Like, I'm actually kind of shocked that the install base didn't buy the game more.
I mean, again, look, I know that the game itself cost $60 million to make, and that is a far cry from what they spent on, let's say, Spider-Man 2. So the game is technically profitable, and I'm sure Sony is happy about that. But of course, any corporation is going to want to sell more. But you know what? Circling the wagons, and let's bring this right back to Fuzzy Belvedere. The Xbox Ally X is not only a comparable handheld, in my opinion, it's one of the best for a lot of reasons. I had a Steam Deck. I sold it privately. I have the ROG Ally first launch console. Good. Always cramped my hands a little bit because of the way it's set up. This new handheld, which of course is an Xbox handheld, is perfect. It fits great in the hands. I use it, and normally, like the way I use my Switch is docked, right? I don't dock it to the TV because Mrs. Boom plays hers, which she just got a Switch 2 for her birthday. So now we're a Switch 2 a family of Switch 2s, I should say. But I have a dock that allows me to see the screen. I use a Pro controller, and that's how I go. Now I've done that same method using the dock because I bought the official dock from ROG, and it works great. Plugs in, keeps it charged. I use it, but I also find myself wanting to play up close and personal. And what I'm starting to look for is games that are now play anywhere. I bought 3 last night that are smaller titles that you look for that and like, yes, that says play anywhere. This is awesome. I think what they've done is really set themselves up great for whatever happens in 27. Because there's not going to, I don't think we're getting a handheld by Xbox next year. I think for 27 is when you get the big boy console, you're going to get, and again, this is just my opinion, folks. Until I'm proven wrong, I think there's going to be a dockable handheld that's going to be an affordable entry into gaming on Xbox that allows you to play every game everywhere from any store. That's the draw. That's why people are going to still buy Xbox consoles and potentially handhelds. But I want to talk about this this statement over here because, again, it's very interesting to know that this handheld is actually is selling out. And again, just to read another excerpt from the story from VGCharts.com, it goes on to say this, Fuzzy. And so since its launch, we've seen the market response for it's been extremely positive for us. And particularly, there has been an appetite for the premium higher end models exceeding our own expectations. The article goes on to say, in fact, these high end variants are currently in short supply, and we are working closely with key component suppliers to ramp up production and fill the demand gap that currently exists. Now, granted, you're going to get some people to say, well, just a second, Boom, that's a soothsaying that. Yes, but this was taken from a conference call for their third quarter. You got to understand, folks, I know that people lie ridiculously on social media. You can't do that if you're sitting in the boardroom. The numbers must match up, and the sales expectations and quotes need to align. There's no lying to investors. So for them to say this, that means it's actually happening. First, let's get your thoughts on this, brother.
Well, a lot of things when it comes to these handhelds, I want to put people's expectations in reality. No one is looking for handhelds to do 20 million, 40 million, 50 million. I mean, they would love for it to reach that, but realistically, Asus and Xbox probably looked at on the low end, probably somewhere around 500,000 units. On the top end, probably closer to 2 million units. Now, what it sounds like is occurring is that they were probably expecting to sell either, for every, one Xbox Ally X, they were probably expecting to sell 2 Xbox Allies. And it sounds like it's more of a 1-to-1. So they're out of sorts, I guess, on the proportion of the Xbox Ally X's that they have allocated. So they'll probably need to make more of those, probably because of the demand is higher on that particular SKU in comparison. That's not to say that they're disappointed with the Xbox Ally. It's just that whoever sat there and did the numbers and crunched things and figured, well, based on metrics, we should probably make more of the Xbox Ally. And now they're finding out the Xbox Ally is more popular. And I kind of parallel this to the auto market when I used to be involved in, like, with muscle cars, for example. Everybody loves the sound of the V8 and love V8s, but the market normally caters to the six cylinder. Now that changes when there's either a new design or a new reintroduction of the vehicle. So back in, what was that, '04, when the '05 Mustang did the redesign, a lot of people thought, oh, the six cylinder will sell so much better. No, all retail orders, or about 90% of them, were for V8s. Now, eventually, the six cylinder started catching up because as you see more of them on the road, less people care about the V8, 2 and 3 years down into the manufacturing cycle. But at launch, everybody that's an enthusiast is going to get the big boy one. Same thing with the Camaro. Same thing happened with the Challenger when it came back. The V8s were selling way better, at least those first 2 years, than they were the six cylinder or even the four cylinder variants that came for the Mustang later. But I say all that to say is that right now, well, kind of like what you guys had hinted to earlier, it is probably not boding well for us seeing a reasonable or an affordable price point for the next generation. Like, I always try and say, don't say the $1,000 or $1,200 out loud. Say more like 600 or 800. Even though I know, they're not probably going to do the, as much of the subsidized, backing behind their products and things. But I would like for that new price point to be 800 or less, as opposed to jumping straight to the 1,000 or 1,200. Because much like the PlayStation guys, when they were like, "Oh, I'll happily pay $80 or $100 for their first party exclusives," and we saw how Sony was like, "Yeah, let's pump it to 80," and then even Nintendo was like, "Yeah, we could do it too," and so so goes. Even Xbox tried it with Outer Worlds 2 originally, but I want people to understand the enthusiasts are the ones that's kind of shaping this market right now. That's to say, as this becomes more widespread, those that are kind of on the fence, that are like, well, is the Xbox Ally worth it? And I've said this long ago. It is worth it if you're on the fence of wanting to be able to play PC games and are looking for something that can connect to your console, that more than likely, as time goes on, will allow you to play console games. It's just that that's not a reality today, unless you're doing the streaming or the remote play or something along those lines. So if you're a console first person and that's all then this is going to be more of like a very expensive portal, but it does have the option to do the direct installs for the Play Anywhere titles for the PC variant. It has the option to stream anything that's through Game Pass with the cloud streaming, since they put cloud on even the other tiers. It's just that you may not get the day ones if you're on the lower tier. But I would say probably Xbox and Asus is looking at, if they can reach 2 million in sales, which they're probably halfway there by now, probably 6 months to a year ahead of where they thought they would be to reach that, then we're going to see a lot more handhelds, whether it's from other partners or even the Xbox One for the next generation, which I do believe, if it's unable to launch at the same time as the under your TV one, it'll probably be the year after. But I'm hoping they kind of do like what Steam did and at least announce all of them at once. Which, by the way, Steam making that announcement for things like the Steam Machine and the frame and the controller and stuff, and still only having the Steam Deck 1 out there right now. The Steam Deck 2 is probably about a year or two away. That goes to show that this blurring of the lines between console and PC are that market's growing, and somebody like Steam can see that. At some point, PlayStation is going to see that, although they better see it sooner rather than later, because they don't want to have to be like, not saying that Nintendo is in a bad spot, because they're obviously not. They're selling well and they're doing well with their hardware and software, but you don't want to have to, be forced into a niche that then that's all you can do, especially with them having aspirations to reach beyond their player base, which, Silent Cypher broke it down real nicely, as far as how there's over 80 million consoles out there, but they're only selling, 4% of them, or 4% of their first party titles to that player base. A lot of these are second PlayStation 5s in the household. A lot of them are TV streaming boxes. Like the main reason why my wife only still has a PS4 because it doesn't make sense to upgrade if she's barely going to play games on it, but stream Netflix and Prime TV. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of households that went out and bought the PS5, and that's what that PS5 is doing. It's streaming, TV right now more so than it's streaming games. But these consoles, these handheld consoles, and I refer to them as consoles because they're feeling more like the console as far as the environment and the UI that you're using. Even though yes, it's playing PC games, but like I said, those lines are blurring, and probably by next generation, it'll just be that these games will be referred to as apps on the platform as opposed to a PC version or a console version. For the fact that that's where they're looking ahead to, where it's one continuous format, no matter what platform you're on, kind of deal. You don't have to wait for the PC port or the console port or something. But yeah, Xbox is probably looking at this like, yeah, we probably could have released our own Xbox handheld, but then we would probably get criticized a lot more for not having the UI up to where they want it for next generation launch. They would probably be criticized on the fact that it's only playing the PC games, which people already did that with the Asus, but it was kind of an understood that this being a PC handheld that is geared towards the Play Anywhere titles. But yeah, please understand that that's on their to-do list, and probably sooner rather than later when it comes to an Xbox handheld. And the success of this market just means that we'll see more advancements. Like I said, with Steam coming into it and doing like their own version of Quick Resume, I think they couldn't call it Quick Resume. They call it like Fast Resume or some sort of resume kind of thing. There's going to be more players in this field, and that just means better for us as gamers and consumers. So just be prepared for the higher prices next gen. I'm already saving up money. I'm debating on picking up any of those Steam devices or even the Xbox Ally X, just for the fact that if I spend $1,000 now, will I be looking at myself funny for the fact that the next device is $1,000, a year later, kind of thing. So start saving now. This is becoming a more expensive hobby, unfortunately. There will be, options for those that aren't looking to throw 800 to 1,000 into a new device. We'll more than likely still be able to use our current devices in the streaming format, which may not be ideal, but it at least get us at least halfway through the next generation or into the middle of that generation, where hopefully prices, mimic times of past where the prices start to drop. But we'll see. Not holding my breath on price drops, but yeah, good to see that this thing is selling, and despite people hating it, it still sells, much like Call of Duty. So yeah, I've rambled enough. I'm sorry.